8. A good night's sleep. Eliza stumbles out of the master bedroom to find the Ritter kids hunched over the coffee table with a map of the region spread out in front of them. Errol is chattering excitedly in a way that makes Dr. Lumen nostalgic for the days of sharing piles of pharmaceutical-grade amphetamines with her husband. Not just lab-tested dope either, these had been designer drugs. But Errol isn't high on PMA. Clearly, he's had some kind of revelation. Before diving into all that excitement, Eliza sniffs out a tin of coffee from the early 90s and unseals it. Caffeine is better than nothing, even if it is half a century old. As the machine begins to percolate, Errol practically dances into the narrow kitchen. Her eyes meet his, and he flashes a wide smile that frankly makes her a little afraid for her safety. "They visited me last night," he says. The coffee still has a minute before it will be ready for absorption into her central nervous system, so at first Eliza thinks he's talking about the men who were after them. What? When? A new look passes over the kid's face, which says plainly that that's the most emotion she's ever displayed in front of him. Thankfully, he doesn't seem to have caught on to her misunderstanding. "In a dream," he says casually. "A dream," she repeats, equally as casually while searching for a mug without flowers on it. "They told me where we need to take the bomb." She finds one and wipes the dust out of it, waiting for, but fully not expecting, the kid to back up his absurd confidence. "We've marked out the coordinates on the map. It's a mountain peak about 50 miles away. Grand Head Zebulon said they've calculated our arrival time so we'll stay ahead of the guys Dr. Kite sent with time to spare." Eliza doesn't remember telling Errol anything about Dr. Kite, so she files that under dubious evidence. More pressing, however, is the other name he mentioned. Grand Head Zebulon? As if called to duty by some oath long adhered to, Patricia appears in the doorway and echoes Lumen's incredulity. "Zebulon." Errol looks away, poorly concealing his embarrassment. "That's what he called himself." "Okay, I'm done." Pat throws her arms in the air and looks expectantly around the cabin. "You can all come out now. It was a good prank, but I'm officially over it." Eliza tries to share a look with Errol, but he's surrendered himself to petulance and can't appreciate the irony. "You both saw what I can do," he protests. Eliza retreats mentally and begins to pour herself some coffee. Patricia's arms fall limply to her sides, and she stares at her brother with those fish egg eyes. "You are the worst possible person to be stuck in this situation with." The kid's mind catches up, and he looks a whole fresh kind of embarrassed. "Yeah, maybe it is a stupid name." He tries to laugh with her, but the social ineptitude has done its damage. Eliza refrains from vocally sympathizing. Instead, she asks, "Show him what Zebby told you." He leads him back to the map in the living room and draws out the path with his finger. It leads further down the road that brought them here, out of the mountains and along the valley for a few miles before dipping back in and quickly winding up to a lookout point near an observatory. "They're going to meet us right here," he says. "A ship is already cloaked in the area." "The Zeta Reticulans?" Pat condescends. Errol shakes his head. "That's a misconception. Nobody lives in that star system. They call themselves the Hyperboreans." "Hyperboreans, got it." Eliza knows to smile and roll her eyes at the girl in order to keep the conversation from derailing. "And how long till Slate's men catch up to us?" "They won't be leaving their HQ till tomorrow. Zebulon wants us to travel under the cover of darkness tonight." "Who's Slate?" asks Patricia. Errol doesn't miss a beat. "He's the one with the firepower, a military general, I think." That's nearly too uncanny for Eliza. A slumbering giant starts to writhe its way free from the chains that have been holding back the past 2 days. "That's not possible," it wails. "How does he know that?" She buries the feeling by engaging in idle commentary. "He's also kind of an idiot." "How's that?" "If you were, say, a computer program, what would possess you to want to obtain a delete all button?" Patty wrinkles up her nose. "Huh?" Errol got it. He nods seriously. "That Zebulon showed me his homeworld, too. It was..." He searches for the words. "Beyond dead. Like negative alive." He does his best to describe the beautiful desolation he experienced in his dream. Eliza nods along. It doesn't sound too unlike what some theories predict about large-scale strangification of everyday matter. The strangelet on the table beside them is made from pure, isolated, strange hydrogen. Gaseous, but compressed and secured by electromagnetic fields. Other elements would have their own unique properties, but after a certain critical mass, they would collapse into a nuclear pasta without any discernible atomic number. Owing to the homogenizing property of the substance, any of the lighter elements would gradually be assimilated into the heavier metallic stuff. That would be what the kid's desolate world would be made of. Maybe a few thousand distinct nuclei forming an entire planet, breaking and recombining as electrons buzzed around their wrinkled superconducting surfaces. The shiny, beautiful ripples would be caused by blind, random perturbations on the quantum scale. "I still can't get over that name," says Pat. "Zebulon." "It's really a stupid name," Eliza confirms. She then looks up to the sky and says at a slightly elevated volume, "No offense, Zeb." The Ritters both look at her like she's an alien for having suddenly acted like a human being by having made a joke. She takes a stabilizing sip of coffee. They spend the rest of the morning gathering supplies. Lai sends Errol down to the general store since he's the most nondescript of the three of them, and he comes back with more than enough nourishment for a few days. He even manages to find some vitamin B complex supplements, which Eliza happily pockets for sustained focus on their journey. The afternoon is spent continuing to work out just what this kid is capable of with his abilities. The experiment ends when he accidentally gives his sister a telepathy-induced bloody nose. After that, the Ritters dust off an ancient board game to pass the time till sundown, then they set off. The mountain road is much different in the darkness. Eliza gently tickles the gas to avoid a collision with some wayward moose or sharp rock. The shadows cast by the car's headlights stretch out into the static of dense woodland, steadily growing darker and darker until there's only a splash of pale yellow light against the pitch-black void that stretches out in all directions. The dirt road is suffocatingly narrow, and the ground drops off sharply to the left into an abyss that may as well be a lake of tar for the function it offers their mortality. As they drive on, the inky chasm slowly evaporates and is replaced by another canyon wall. It's only a small comfort, having the threat of falling be replaced by a claustrophobic vice of towering earth. The sky is only barely visible in the form of sporadic stars and moonlight filtering down between the overhanging trees, and the hyper-vigilant engines in the back of Eliza's mind can see shapes moving high up in the atmosphere. Otherworldly phantasms induced by the ramblings of a conspiracy nut in the catalytic environment of impending planetary doom, she reasons. She keeps rubbing her eyes, but the invaders in her periphery only dance away, just enough out of sight to make her feel crazy. Errol stirs in the passenger seat. He's looking up through the branches too. "Do you see that?" he says. The volume of his voice, completely normal that is, startles Lai enough to make her pee a little. She offers a cursory glance in the direction he's looking, then glues her eyes back to the snaking road in front of her. "See what?" "Something moving up there over the ridge." He points. Eliza doesn't take her eyes off the road. "You're only seeing what you expect to see." He frowns in the dim glow of the dashboard. "Maybe." Eliza lets out a long, cooling breath, and they drive on. After a bit, she sees it reappear out of the corner of her eye again. Errol sees it too. Their eyes meet, and she's no longer able to pretend the phenomenon is isolated to his reference frame. "They must be keeping tabs on us," she offers. It makes perfect sense, given what information they have. Errol gives a look that says, "No, why wouldn't they have told us?" but nods. "Yeah, probably." Something moves up in the trees ahead. Eliza gasps, and the car lurches. "What is it?" Errol claws at the center console. Eliza shakes the spiders out of her hair. "An animal." Errol leans forward, trying to peer into the pitch black of the trees. He shakes his head, but says nothing. They drive on. A few silent minutes later, the shadows reappear. Eliza slows down. There is something moving in the trees up ahead. Several things, in fact. Tall, black silhouettes in the night, slender and bipedal. They look naked, like some dark fairies out of a play. They move like liquid from tree to tree, hiding and peeking out at the travelers in the car. Eliza hears whispers just behind her ears, and she slams on the brakes. The headlights bounce up and reflect against two massive glittering opals set into a stone-gray skull. The being shields its eyes and quickly ducks out of sight. Lai can't help but squeal in terror. Two more glittering eyes appear suddenly in the rearview mirror, inside the car. Lai squeals again and turns around to see Patricia, startled awake and staring at her through those inch-thick glasses. She wants to feel relieved, but the aliens are still outside. She turns to Errol beside her, communicating simply with a glance. "What the hell are they doing here, kid?" He looks scared for a moment too, but sets his jaw and looks out into the trees. The shadows have gone. He closes his eyes and presses his fingers to his temples in concentration. "Can you sense them?" she whispers. He nods, vaguely. "And?" He focuses for a few more silent moments before opening his eyes. They're moving further up the road. Eliza grasps blindly for some kind of rationality. Do they want us to follow them? It's clear that Errol doesn't know, but he nods. Just keep moving. Eliza's arms and legs have crystallized in place from the adrenaline. She's gradually able to chisel away at the blocks of ice and begins to inch forward along the road. They don't see the creatures again for a long, tense half an hour. Eventually, she's able to convince a good portion of her mind that it was all some shared hallucination. Probably just some deer, or more likely owls. They drive on until something appears in the narrow splash of light between them and the miles of darkness. Just up the bend, a long, knotted object juts out from the woods off to the right. They pull up closer to see the fallen trunk of a dead tree completely blocking their path. "Well, shit," says Pat from the back seat. Eliza can feel her arms beginning to petrify once again, but she shakes out her fingers and unbuckles her seatbelt before the process can fully take hold. "Patricia, you stay inside," she says. Errol hesitates, but quickly follows her lead, and they both step out into the darkness. She looks to him, a silent question. He nods. The creatures are out there, just beyond the trees, waiting. "Why?" she whispers. Errol remains unreadable, powering through the oppressive eeriness to grab hold of one end of the fallen log. Lai takes her position at the other end, and they start to heave the object out of the way. Out in the darkness, off the road, a twig snaps. They ignore it. Whatever the creatures want, they're clearly in no hurry. Of course, that only makes it worse. The log is knotted, bent, and hollow, awkward to hold but manageable. Errol moves backwards while Eliza guides from the rear. They scuttle toward the roadside, then pivot away from the car with Errol as the fulcrum. The log falls to the dirt with a crunch. Eliza straightens, shielding her eyes from the car's glaring headlights. Silhouetted against the radiant brightness, Errol is already of the vehicle. He looks taller from this perspective. She takes a step towards him, but stops when she notices a shorter figure beside her, bearded with a woolen cap. He catches her haunted expression in the white glow and swivels around. Lai feels a searing pain at the base of her skull and falls to the ground, unconscious.